Hello, everyone, and welcome to our session, Visio Timelines for Project Managers. Our speaker, James, is Director of Premier Group, a company that specializes in project management and IT solutions. Their main focus is project online implementation and project management training and Visio-based solutions, including a Premier Timeline add-in, Visio Services, and SharePoint Consultancy. He's also the part-time SSP for Visio and Project for Southeast Asia. James, take it away.
Great, thanks Andrew. That was pretty comprehensive. I'm sorry everyone, I don't happen to have a video or a webcam, so unfortunately you're just going to have to put up with a picture of me instead. Look, just a quick overview of what we're going to have as the agenda. I want to just kick things off just to show you what you've got in terms of timelines within project themselves. And then we'll have a very quick overview of what we've got in Visio, which I think is specifically going to be useful for you as project managers. And I'm just assuming by the very nature of you being on this call, watching this program, that you're going to be project managers anyway. I'm then going to have a look at what we've got in terms of timelines within Visio, then have a look at a little add-in that Premier have done, and then just show you how you can get around to showing this off using something called Visio Services, which is in effect putting Visio on SharePoint. So let's get straight on with an actual live demo, and let's start off with MS Project. And if you don't know already, if you want to be able to find out the timelines, it's under the View tab, and just click up on that Timelines. What I'm going to do is just make this a little bit bigger. And what I'm going to do here is I maybe just want to take all my phases and just show that up onto a timeline. So under View again, I can go into my outline mode and I can shrink them all down. I can just highlight all of these. And I've got a couple of options. I can either go to the edge of my border here and just click and drag up, or probably much easier, right mouse button, and then just add to the timeline. And up it goes. Now you can see here that what we've done is the actual view is the view of my Gantt chart. And if I want to then be able to just show that in full, there's a nice little button in here, again in view, where all I have to do is just see the entire project and it will expand it out. Now, with these timelines at the top, obviously I can click on any one of these and I can change its format. So if I want to change the color, or I just want to change the text color, I've got that ability to be able to do so quite easily. Maybe for the whole project itself, rather than just having it as a bar, I maybe want to change it to being a call out so that you can see it's across the top. And as a call out, I've got my heading here and I can just pick that up and move it around. Again, if I want to be able to change the text, I can just go up to the top and as I said before, I can just play around with that quite easily. If I wanted to maybe pick out the milestones, key milestones, which are going to be fairly useful. First up, what I need to do is just go into my outline and see all my tasks. And then I'm just going to do a filter to pick out 0 days. And if I've got any key milestones, all I have to do is just click and drag and drop it into the timeline. So right mouse button again, add to timeline. I'll just do one more so that you can see this. As a timeline, I can just pick this up and move it around. And just as I've done beforehand, if it's important, I may want to change the text to being possibly red and also give it a bold. Right, nice and straightforward. I can see that at any time. For any of you at the moment, sorry, I should have said, I'm using Project Pro 2013. This would be the same as Project Standard. If though you've got new Project 2016, you can see 3 timelines all at once. Now, it's all very well, but a lot of the time we want to then put that into a report. And we've got the ability, once I'm in my timeline, a little button pops up to say copy it. I can put it straight into an email or for a presentation. If I'm going to put it into a Word or PowerPoint, something that I like doing is to just reduce the size of project. And what I'm going to do is just go back into my view there, just see the entire project again. I'll get across. And then finally, what we're going to do is I'm now going to copy that timeline for presentation. I'm then going to go into my PowerPoint presentation and then just paste. Now, if I did a right mouse button, I can just paste it in the destination theme. I've also got the ability to be able to paste it in as a picture. If I paste it as a picture, I can't make any changes to it. If I do want to make some changes, I can just bring it across just a straightforward paste. And what that will allow me to do is to go into each one of these individual items, and I can just pick up and move these as individual shapes. And I can just format that text as well if I wanted to. So here I can just copy the text, change the text around and play around with it. So it just gives me way more flexibility rather than just having it as a snapshot as a picture, but maybe just having a snapshot as a picture might be just what you require. Okay, so that's what we've got just out of the box from MS Project. If we have a look just really quickly at Visio, and if you've not used Visio beforehand, I always think this is just an absolute excellent tool, one of Microsoft's best kept secrets, especially for project managers. Now, on the left-hand side, we've got day-to-day drawing tools, stuff that you should be using all the time, probably using PowerPoint for. And what I'm going to try and do is show you how, if you're using PowerPoint, it can be 4 times more faster or more efficient using Visio than you would do using PowerPoint. And then just on this area in green, things which you would probably want to do is mind maps, just being able to capture people's thoughts and getting it down onto paper really quickly. A lot of project management is about processes. So we've got the process map. And in there as well, we've also got a timeline as well. We've also got extra things in there. We've got an organizational chart, which if you have to have Outlook and Exchange, will draw those, draw the organization for you. If you're doing anything to do with IT, networks, you've got network shapes, and you can also do a space planner as well, which means the room and the office you're living in, you can actually have it all done to scale. So that's your day-to-day usage, and with any one of these within Visio, you can copy and paste into Word and PowerPoint, or you can publish straight into SharePoint. And when you've got that in SharePoint, what that does is it allows you to get other people, it allows you to collaborate, and it has other people viewing your drawings. And the good news for them is they don't have to have Visio on their desktop to be able to have a to be able to view that. If you want to go one step further and you're using SharePoint, one of the great things you've got, the ability is to be able to take backend data and link it to shapes. That is all very well, and you can have that updated automatically. But what really brings this to life is this thing called data graphics. You have color by value, you have key icons, you have progress bars. So as the information changes, all these data graphics change as well. So it gives you a true business intelligence solution. And again, as I said before, you can publish all of that in SharePoint. And when you refresh in SharePoint, the data can be uploaded from your database. Again, if anyone's interested in SharePoint, one of the things Microsoft have done is taken away the sitemap. So what it does is it will list out all the pages on either your web page or your SharePoint site, give you where your graphics are, give you links, and then give you a big red cross where you've got broken links. With those broken links, you can right mouse button and it will take you straight to that web page. We've got co-authoring, we've got pivot diagrams. With pivot diagrams, think of Excel pivot tables, we all use those, but it's done in a graphical sense. If anyone does SharePoint, you've got the ability to be able to map out your workflow in Visio and then export it into SharePoint Designer. So now business is in charge of what's happening with your workflow as opposed to just being IT only. And for anyone serious about process maps, you've got BPMN, Business Process Mapping Notation, which means you have to put in rules. So you always have to have a start and an end point. If you have a decision, you've got yes and no coming out of it, and you can put in your own rules as well. So 3 things I'm going to show you, or maybe a 4th if you don't mind. I'm going to show you some of my maps. I'm going to show you how simple it is to do flowcharts, and I'm going to show you the timeline. And then also I'd just like to show you how you can actually take external data and link it to shapes, because this will come up later on in this presentation. So let's just come out of here, and I'm now going to just load up Visio. And within Visio, you can see that we've got a whole load of key templates. At the moment, I've got the most recently used, but I've also got them grouped together. So if I wanted to see my flowcharts, I can see in here all my flowcharts. If I go back to home, if I wanted to then choose business, I can see all my business templates. One of the ones we're going to use, brainstorming. So just to confirm, with brainstorming, you want to get your thoughts and ideas onto paper really quickly. If you've not seen Visio before, you can see it looks and feels like any other Microsoft product. You've got your tabs going across the top. Something slightly different. Down the left-hand side, you've got an area where shapes are kept. These are called your stencils. And if you've never done this before, it's quite interesting where you have to just click and drag shapes out onto the page. And then down the bottom, you've got page tabs very similar to Excel. Now, if you've not done this before, it's worth trying to do this to about 10 or 20 shapes. This idea of just clicking and dragging the shape out onto the page. It's quite different from anything that Microsoft has. And just a word of advice, you always bring along a mouse. It will certainly help as opposed to using a touch screen or a touch button. Now, once you've got a main topic onto the page, we've got the shape selected, you can then just type in some text, because the idea here is you just want to get our thoughts and ideas onto paper really quickly. If we're going to treat this like PowerPoint, then with PowerPoint, I'd take over a topic shape. I'd take over one of these little dynamic connectors, take an endpoint and place it over one of these little grey buttons at the edge of the shape. The shape now of this line has now two green handles to say it's been stuck onto the shape. I then click and drag it down, the line looks after itself. Now, you're going to say that, well, James, I can sort of do that in PowerPoint. Yes, you can. Then the problem is, it's so slow. You want to get your thoughts and ideas onto paper as quickly as possible. So I'm just going to delete this out. And a quick way around this would be to right mouse button and add in a subtopic, and then it goes. And I can now just type in straight away. Oh, and by the way, if I were to move that shape, the line's automatically glued in. If I wanted to have more topics, then what I can do is I can add multiple subtopics. So I'm going to cheat here. I'm just going to use some numbers. And there you go. And voila. If I wanted to have something on the same peer level, right mouse button, put in a peer topic, and then it goes. If I wanted to take out another main topic, I can also right mouse button and change its shape. So I can change the topic shape to being a cloud, or rectangle, or starburst. So I'll change that to being a cloud. And I'm also going to just join these together using something called dynamic glue. So I'm just going to put it into the middle of a shape. And then right mouse button, and I'm going to put in some more multiple subtopics. And again, I'm going to cheat here. Just put in some characters or letters instead. In it goes. And it's a mess. But the whole idea is we want to try and get our thoughts onto paper as quickly as possible. And now when I'm finished, all I have to do is go up into my brainstorming tab at the top here, click on it, on auto arrange, and there we go. Instantly updated brainstorming chart. So that's always fairly useful. Again, let's have a quick look at processes. I'm going to just go into File and New. I'm going to go into Flowcharts. Two ones I really want to show off here. One is the idea of just having a basic flowchart, and the other one is a cross-functional flowchart. I'll just choose the basic one here and create. And then if I take out a process, if I take my mouse pointer now over the shape, you can see I get a little arrow sticking out, and I get 4 shapes to choose from. And I can use this now to create a very, very quick flowchart. I mean, it's very, very quick indeed. What it's done is it's taken shapes from the top 4 shapes in my stencil. And if I don't want to have this custom 4 anymore, but I want to replace it with the custom 3, just drag that custom 3 shape up. And now you can see I've got like a little cheese grater shape replacing my hexagon. Now, again, you might say, well, that's all very clever, James, but I can sort of do that in PowerPoint. And you're right. The thing here, though, is process maps are living, breathing things. They should be changing on a regular basis. So if I now just go and change these 2 shapes, change the color of these 2 shapes to show you what's going to happen. If I now said, okay, between those 2 yellow shapes, I want to put in a new process. What I have to do now is click and drag my process shape into the middle of those 2 yellow shapes. You can see just behind the line's got 2 green handles. When I let go, it adds the shape. If I were to delete that shape, then what it does, it links in the 2 yellow shapes again. And if I just move that over to the left and up, you can see how it's linked in. Also, if I get to the edge of a page, I don't have to worry in the past about drilling down and drilling up. What I have to do here is I can just click outside the page and it gives me a new canvas. And then if someone gives you a document which is all just a little bit messy, under home and under position, you've got auto space and line. Okay, it's done it for this first one, I think, because I had it selected. If I take and select the one down the bottom, do the same thing again, you can see how it just brings it up. Really simple, straightforward. If I take out another shape, hopefully you can see you get these little green lines, which means that you can always have all your shapes properly aligned and spaced. If I then said for this first shape over here on the left to this yellow diamond, what I want to do is to add in a process line. All I have to do is click on my arrow, click and drag, and now I've got a line joining those two shapes up. If I wanted then to say, okay, I've got my process all lined up, let's go into my design tab and I can just change the different types of themes available to me. One of these themes is handwriting. One of the boffins of Microsoft said that if people saw it being the finished, saw straight lines, they would think it's the finished article. So now you've got a handwritten drawing here, which makes people have a look at it, or in theory makes people have a look at it in more detail. But I've got to say I'm not convinced. And then on top of that, if any of you use PowerPoint, you've also got background pages, or in PowerPoint they're called master pages. In Visio it's background pages, and here what I'm going to choose is some defaults, but you can create your own background page so it makes everything look and feel the same. One really quick last minute thing about a process. Here, what I can do is if I click on a shape, I go to insert hyperlink. Under hyperlinks, I've got my sub-address. So if I wanted to drill down a page or drill up, I can now just click on browse to go to another page. There's any pages to choose from. But also, if I choose address and local file, what that means is I can actually then pick out a local file, typically maybe a PowerPoint or a Word file. So in this particular case, I may actually have a link to a standard operating procedure specifically for this process. So again, just something useful to keep in the back of your mind on this. And then just before I want to show you timelines, just bear with me because I just want to show you how it's really easy to be able to take back-end data and link it to shapes. And the reason why I'm going to show you this a little later on. So I've got something here which has just got some standard IT shapes. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to data and bring up this thing called a shape data window. And what that means is you've got the ability to put information inside a shape. If I now click on this server shape at the top, you can see over here that I've got the ability to be able to put in quite a lot of information. In this case, maybe possibly too much. If I want to change that, right mouse button, define the shape data. And here what I can do is I can delete it all out. If I want to put in my own set of new data, I can then decide, do I have the text number, list, variable, currency, date, duration, that sort of stuff. So anything I want to capture, I can put in there. And also with that shape, I can put it into my own favorite stencil and put it into my own template for use later on. Now, if I happen to have some back-end data, I can take that back-end data and then attach it to the shape. So in this case, I'm still in my data tab. If I now go into data, link data to shapes, I've got the usual suspects here in terms of Access, SharePoint list, SQL and ODBC. So pretty much any type of database. In my case, my data is in Excel. I'm now just going to choose my network data. Oh, sorry, I didn't want to choose this one. Unfortunately, it's actually on that one. It's actually been stored on the SharePoint site. Okay, my apologies. I just want to have this in a local file. I do apologize. Okay, I want to take everything from sheet one, all my rows, all my columns, and then finish. Right down the bottom here, I've now got my database, and I can change the size of that. I can make it bigger or smaller. Now, if I zoom in, little trick on this, Control Shift and click and drag around the outside. You can see here I've got team file server number one, team file server number one from my database. I'm just going to now click and drag that across. You can see here my shape has got a blue outline. As soon as I let go, I've got three bits of graphics in here. Now, where I've got to match my database location, that was already there in my shape data, so I've got to match. Anything not there is then listed down at the bottom. if I wanted to then say I want to link these to all these shapes, rather than just manually taking them out, I can do automatically link. So take all your shapes on this page. And then what I would do is match the field name for my database to, in this case, a shape text or anything that I've got stored inside my shape data. In this case, I've got my shape text, and then just finish. I can get it refreshed. So at any time I can go into configure here, and then I can just refresh it, and I can refresh that down to every minute. So that data is coming through in real time, and I can see it just being updated. So pretty cool. But at the moment, all we've got is pretty much text and numbers. And if I want this to come alive, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, with my operating systems, I've got a very, very old operating system, NT4. And under status here, I've got active and inactive. And what I want to do is to see those. I want to maybe have a little cross for my NT4, and I want to see a color by value for active and inactive. So here I've got my data graphics. I've got the existing data graphics that I'm using, and I'm just going to right mouse button and edit. And here I've got my 3 bits of text. I can delete out any of them. I can change their position, or I can change the actual shape data field that I'm looking into. But I'm going to keep those, and I'm going to add in 2 new items. Here I'm just going down to the operating system, and not only can I change the text, I could maybe have a data bar, got progress bars, star ratings, if I scroll down, people rating, thermometers, and that good stuff. In this case, though, what I want to do is choose an icon set, and here what I need to do is with my big red cross, I'm going to say equals, but you've got the usual suspects, greater than, less than, between. I'm going to say equals NT4, doesn't have to be in uppercase. And I'm going to have this just above the shape on the right. And then one more item, I'm just going to scroll down the bottom here, and I'm going to choose status. I'm going to say color by value. Here it's picked out, I've got active and inactive. I'm going to change the active to being green. If this was numbers, you could match a number, or it would put in a range. Click on OK, click on OK, and there you can see it, everything being updated. Now, what I'm going to do is this orange colored PC, or at the very top of the page, I'm going to change that so it's going to be the same as the team file server on its right, which is green and a red cross, by going into the database. Here's the database, not up to much. What I'm going to do is just now copy over the data, save that. So now what we've done is we've made changes to the database. If I now go back into my Visio file, click on refresh, and absolutely, oh, it's gone the other way around. What I've done is, instead of making it green and with the red cross, I've actually made my team file server #1 orange. But you can see the principle. You make some changes to your database, you can see how that comes through and gets updated. Okay, so let's go back to what the main theme was about, which is timelines. And timelines could be found on schedules. Bear in mind, if you've got someone within the organization which wants to produce Gantt charts, but doesn't want to have the complexity of using MS Project, you've got a Gantt chart, and I'll leave you in your own time just to go in and play with that. It's quite simple and straightforward. In this particular case, we're going to have a look at timeline. Just going to bring that across. I'm just going to close down my shape data for the moment. Possibly just a bit too big there. And here I'm just going to have a cylindrical timeline. I'm going to drop that on the page. And here it's just going to say, what's the start and finish date? I'm going to take that back to the end of December. In it goes. I'm going to just increase the size of the text here so you can see it a little bit easier. And if I just want to manually add in to this, what I can do is I can put in a milestone. So maybe if I want to have a line milestone, I'm going to have something maybe towards the start of November. And if I drop it into the middle of December, it knows that I've dropped it into the middle of December. I'm just going to put in here Preso, as in presentation. I'm then going to say I want to have this on the Monday the 9th. Click on OK, and there it moves. Just going to increase the size of the text that you can see it. In addition, can you see where I've got my text? I've got a little yellow handle. With those yellow handles, it means I can pick it up and do something with it. So in this case, I can just manipulate it and move it around. I've got also different types of milestones. I've got a pin or a square or a cross or triangle, whatever one you want. I've also got a today marker. So I'm just going to drop that into the middle of December, and it knows now to just drop it in for today's date. And if you want to come back tomorrow, you can see that move on one day. If I wanted to then say, well, this is all very well, but I want to see the detail from mid-October to mid-November in some more detail, well, I've got here is an expanded timeline. I can just take that and just drop that onto the page. So here, what I'll do is I'll take that from maybe the 19th of November to the 18th of November. So 19th October to 18th of November. And what you can do is you can see, okay, if I move the top one, I'll move the bottom one, the top one moves across, and if I take the top one, I now want to exactly position it, right mouse button, configure my milestone, and then just take it back to November, and I'll put it back onto the 9th. If I wanted then to be able to say a block interval, so I want to put something in so I can just show that off in a little bit more detail, I can just drop that into place. And then on top of that, I've got some curly brackets. So if I'm just gonna drop this in so that you can see the principle, take it across, literally click and drag up. And there you go, I've got quite a detailed timeline, and it's not looking too bad. Okay, I could tidy up a little bit more if I had some more time. And then what I can do is I can just copy and paste straight into Word or PowerPoint, or I can publish this into SharePoint to be able to let other people have a look at it. Now, that's all very well, but one of the other things you've got available to you, which is quite clever, and that is to be able to link your data. So it might be some milestone data in a database and have those automatically come up in Visio. So what I mean by that is, if I now just do another timeline, so I'm just going to go new and schedule and timelines. Okay, I'm just going to bring out a cylindrical timeline here. I'm just going to take that down back to the end of December. Okay, I'm now going to bring up a database. So I'm going to go back into data and link data to shapes. In this case, it's in Excel again. And it's my timeline data. Okay, in this case, I'm just going to go finish rather than going to say I want to have that. Yeah, so I'm just going to go into finish as opposed to say I want to choose everything from sheet 1 and have all the rows and columns. And here it's really very, very simple. I've just got start and I've just got a task name. The reason I want to have task name is I actually want to match that up. So what I can do is it will then bring up the text from my database. You'll see what I mean in just a second. So now if I then bring up maybe a square milestone, I'm just going to drop that onto the page for the moment. Okay, just click on OK. Now I'm just going to zoom in here so you can just see this in a little bit more detail. Okay, so I've just got a standard milestone. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this top row of my database. I'm just then going to click and drag it over my timeline so you can see just about that it's got it's highlighted. And as soon as I let go, notice that not only will it put in the text for me, it will also change the date in there as well. So if I now then maybe change that with a triangle, so what I'm going to do is just drop that onto the page, click on OK. There are slightly quicker ways of doing this, but I've found sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So I actually tend to find it's much better just doing this as a manual process. So here I'm just going to move the text around. Okay, let's do that for the next one. Let's maybe take a circle over here. And if I had more information in here, if I went into my shape data window, you could see here that I've got all this information just in my shape data window. Now, in theory, if I were to make some changes into my Excel spreadsheet, all of this will be updated. However, in my case, I've actually been doing some fancy stuff in Visio, and it's actually screwed things up. I should have reloaded it, but not had time. Right now, just go back into my timelines here and maybe change that. Instead of being the 15th, I'm now going to change that to being the 20th of October. I'm going to save the changes. Now, if I go back into my Visio and then refresh, you can see what's happened is it's just caused a bit of a problem. So normally what would happen there is I'll just have to close this down to resolve a conflict and then just put that in again. So just take out another diamond milestone and then just click and drag that and then just link it to the shape itself. Not great, but at least there's a workaround. And so it gives you something that you can actually show off quickly and easily. Now, it was because of this that Premiere created a add-in to Visio, so that what it would do is it would actually just draw out timelines in the form of tasks and milestones. So just to show you what I mean, if I now just go to File and Open, and this is here just to show you what the end result would look like. We've got a situation here where you can actually see the progress of a task as well. You can see everything comes up in red, amber, green. If it comes up in blue, it just means that there's no color associated to the task. And you can see here that they've actually been grouped together. In this case, in terms of updating, it's incredibly simple to do. If I now just go into my timeline demo tab, I just bring up, run the timeline. You can see it remembers the file that I had beforehand. So I can click on browse to choose something else. I've got default start and end dates, but if I want to keep them fixed, I can do so. I can just click on it. I've got today's date. I can put in dates next to my project name. I've got a percentage complete to show how much has been completed, and I can show this in quarters if it goes over a longer period of time. And all I have to do there is just click on OK, and it just becomes updated. If I then just go in and just show you the actual data itself, sorry, I thought I had it to hand. Here we go. And what I've done now is I've just unhided, I've just hidden some some rows. So what happens now is it will actually just show what you actually see on the screen. Hence the reason why we've actually got the filtering. You can just filter by different groups if you wanted to. Just going to save my work. And again, if I now just go back into my Visio and then just run the timeline again, click on OK, and you can just see how simple and easy this has just been updated. So that's the out-of-box facility. Once you've got something like this, we can then publish it into SharePoint. And so if we now just go into SharePoint to just have a quick peek to see what this is going to look like, this just gives you a sample. So anyone's recognized SharePoint, you can see what we've done here is we've just added a web part, and within that web part, we've actually just added the timeline demo to that. Now, while we're actually here, what I wanted to do is just show you what Visio services look like. So we've got our network diagram, and you can see this is what would happen if it's been updated. Once it's actually been published on here, what we can do is there's a little zoom button up and down at the bottom here, so we can zoom in and out. We can just pick it up, move it around. You can go one step further, or if you had any shape data inside, we can click on the shape data information and we can see any of that shape data stored inside that shape. Okay, so this is again a little bit clunky, but you can see all that information stored inside. And then you can take that one step further. So something that we've been developing with the help of David Parker at Visio over in the UK, and that is the ability to be able to have a JavaScript text on the right hand of your screen. So in this particular case, something that we've created for a client, and these are key component parts to an application. And if I want to click on a component part, you can see here up on the right hand side, we've got a small little bit of JavaScript, which just shows us all the metadata in clear detail. And by the way, all of that is automatically updated. This is taken from a database and automatically updated when the database changes. We can go one step further. Here we've got something very similar with an organizational chart. And again, if I were to click on any one of these, you can see a different style of approach just over there on the right-hand side. In this particular case, what we've done is we've got two KPIs over there on the right-hand side, which have come in from an Oracle database. We've also got progress bars coming in there as well. And if there's any other data, key data that we've got stored inside shape, we can actually bring that in there as well. And then just to finish off here, we can go in and just see our Visio timelines. But if we've got external data from our database, we can actually bring those in. So now you can see what I've done is I've selected on the process shape, and you can see how that's actually captured any additional information over here on the right-hand side. Okay, we don't have any information down the bottom on those. So you can see all of a sudden this just makes for a really very powerful tool, and it only needs just one copy of Visio to be able to then share out. So that's pretty much about it. I've actually finished just a little bit earlier than I anticipated. In the meantime, is there any queries or questions on this?
I don't have any questions right now, James.
Okay. So let's go back. The only other thing is that we've got this out of the box. This can be easily customized. So how this originally came out was with a bank called UBS, big Swiss bank. What they wanted to do was have the life cycle of new software coming out. And so we had the early initial stage all the way through to redundancy. And we can see that 3 different types of colors. We can actually change the style and the format. So if you wanted to put in big arrows to say that this is going to be like a summary task, we've got all of that to be able to put in there as well. In that case, just because we've got a few more minutes late, if you don't mind, I'm going to indulge you with just playing around then with using some other Visio tools or templates. So what I'd like to do then maybe is just kick things off. Let's go into schedule and something I mentioned about Gantt charts. So again, if you want to see a Gantt, but you don't have our MS project, or if finding MS project's a little bit too complicated at the moment, then here what we can do is we can bring up the template. We can see here the number of tasks which have come up. Default is 5. That would be fine for the moment. And now if I just zoom in here, just around the outside, what you can do is you can see all your tasks. I'm just going to put in something in here that's having prepared scoping. I then say I want to change this to maybe 3 days. Just press escape when I'm finished. naturally it picks up the fact that I'm over the weekend, so it comes up on a Tuesday. If I want to make sure that the second task comes in after the first one, what I can do is I can select the first shape, hold down the Shift key, click on the second shape, and then I've got a Gantt Chart tab, which then allows me to just link these together, just as you would do within MS Project. If I want to be able to then say, well, this is all very well, but I want to be able to add in a milestone. So my milestone shape of my stencil, I can just pick and drag that across and drop that in. And if I then said, actually, I want to have that for next week, I'm just going to put in the 28th of December. Okay, and then that goes. And then with tasks 3, 4, and 5, if I said that task 3 is going to be a summary task to 4 and 5, what I can do is I can take 4 and 5 and I can just indent them. So you can see here, let's just make this a little bit bigger. Let's take this over about maybe 2 days, escape, and then 2 days. Okay. So you can see, and then just link these together. You can see it just looks and feels just like any other, Microsoft project, in terms of its versioning, just for ease of use. And there's some limited extras on here. So if I want to insert a column, I can do right mouse button, insert column. I've got a percentage complete, but in here as well, I've got a whole load of other different types of inputs that I can choose from. They're fairly limited, but if I now say, for example, choose percentage complete, I then said I want to choose 50%, just instead of pressing enter, always get around to pressing escape. You can see here what's happened is it's put it in as 50%. But if I now click on the actual task itself, you can see there's a little bar itself. What I can do is I can decide how much I want that to be by just manipulating and just choosing that. Now, it has got import and export data. In my experience, that's not been the best. And to be honest, this is just like an entry level into project management. Again, what you can do is you can just copy and paste that into Word, PowerPoint, or then have that published straight into MS Project. Couple of other little tools which, if you're using SharePoint or just want to have a website, which I always find really very, very useful, and that is if you now go into File and New, and under Software, we've got website map. And so now if I create that for the first time, what it will do is it will say put in a website. In this case, you could put in a SharePoint site as well, and this is where I think it works very well with SharePoint. And the reason for that is that for some reason Microsoft in version 2010 they've taken out the sitemap, but they've also made it much easier for people to be able to go and add pages and add links. The problem here is that I think that because we're not web designers, and I know for a fact there's pages all over the place which aren't being monitored, and there's broken links in there as well. Just bear in mind, if you typed in here Microsoft.com, you could be there for some time. Normally, what I tend to do is just leave it running overnight. But what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go into File and open up an existing site. And I thought I had that to hand. Yeah, this is a friend of mine's website. And here, if I now zoom in, what it does, it shows me all the pages. It will show me all the graphics. So here, if I now just right mouse button on this graphic and expand the hyperlink, what it will do here is it will go in and just tell me this is where the graphics kept. And I can just go straight to that page and sort it out, or find the graphic and make any changes to it. I'm scrolling over to the right here. It says I've got a link and a big red cross. That's telling me that I've got a broken link. And here, what I can do is I can go right mouse button and I can just go straight to that page to fix the problem. So again, just really handy tools straight out of the box. One last thing I want to finish off on, and that is, if you're project managers, chances are you've got a team. If you want to show off the hierarchy of that team, there's a great little feature within Visio called Organization Chart. So that's found under Business. And here, what I'm going to do is just pick out that organizational chart. Just by default, it will come up and say, look, have you got this link to a database? it will draw it automatically for you. If you've got it linked to Exchange, it will draw it out automatically for you. In this case, I'm just going to create a manual one, which is probably what you would do normally. And over here on the left-hand side in my stencils, you can see here that I've got my various shapes. So if I want to just draw this out, I've got an executive at the top. If I take out a manager belt, I can just click and drag that in. And notice it just drops these automatically into place. If I then said this manager on the left-hand side, I'm just going to highlight that person so you can see it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a position. So I can take out one position, that's fine. If I think that I want to have 3 or 4 of these, I can take out multiple shapes. And then what that will do is to say, okay, well, how many shapes do I need? I've got 3, but I can change that. What's the shape that I need? A position shape. Click on OK, and it just draws that out for me. I can change its position. If I now click on the manager shape, go up to my org chart, I can then relay out, so I can have all of these maybe side by side. If I just go back to having them all laid down as beforehand, if I think that manager is in the wrong position, I can just now move the manager, and of course, as you'd expect, all the subordinates would go with them. If I think I've got too many subordinates on here, I can right mouse button and I can actually create a synchronized copy. So I can take these onto another page. If I come back, I can then right mouse button into my subordinates and hide them. And now if I zoom in and just see this in a little bit more detail, here what I can do is I can put in a title, which is consultant. I'll put in a name. And also what I can do is I can right mouse button, whoops, I can just click away and right mouse button and add in the picture. So I can change the picture. Whoops, there's some of my personal ones. If I now just go into Visio and pick out Anna, there's a picture of Anna. And what I may want to do is have a hyperlink to take me to Anna. So to do that, what I would do, just go into insert, whoops, need to click on the shape, go into my hyperlink. And because I'm going from one page to a second page internally, click on my subaddress, go into browse, and here what I want to do is to pick out page 2. Hold down the control key or right mouse button and go down to page 2, and it takes me straight through. As you would notice, picture of Anna and the details have already been updated. If I then do that, I can then just drill back and forth. So what I can do here is I can say, okay, let's browse and go back to page 1. In this case, I can just hold down the control key and it just takes me back. So all of a sudden, you've got a great tool to just then drill you up and drill you down and just be able to then show this out. And if you've made a mess of this, you want to be able to add in additional people, that's great. You think, I've made a bit of a mess, I want to be able to change this around. Just as we did with brainstorming, what we can do is we can go up into the org chart and we can say relay out. And there you go. If I take the top person, I can move it around. All of the others will move as well. If I don't like this type of shape, what I can do is I can go in here and just change the style. So I've got different types to choose from, depending on what takes your fancy on that front. And just bear in mind, as I said before, I can actually go into Outlook and be able to say, take a manager and see all the people underneath and be able to get that to be drawn out automatically. But generally, if you've got a small team, you want to be able to create this quickly and easily. You can see how simple and easy that was. Certainly way better than doing it in PowerPoint. And I actually had one poor person who's trying to do this in Excel. So there you go. So look, just to confirm, we've just seen a quick overview on the timelines within project. All you have to do, right mouse button, and you can actually have it so that you can add that task or milestone and put it into your timeline. Once you've got those items up into the timeline, you can format them, and then you can copy them and paste them straight into Word or straight into PowerPoint. Bear in mind, if you're using Project 2016, you've got 3 timelines available to you. I tend to find that you need to really have this over a period of time, maybe at least 2 weeks gap. Anything less than that, and it gets a little bit too granular and the text gets a little bit too complicated. You've got Visio and timelines. So you saw how easy it was just to go into File and New and Timelines under the Schedule category, and then just be able to create your timelines there. And then also, if you want to be very clever, if you have that linked into some back-end data, we can actually have those so that they will automatically be placed in the correct position. But things fall apart when you get around to doing updating the back-end data. We've got Premier timelines, so that just accesses data from Excel or even Project, and you can actually take on filtered data, and it's just a quick way of being able to get some high-level timelines to be had. And then finally, we've got the ability to then just take those and then put them into Visio services. And once they're up in the Visio services, it just means that people are going to be able to get around to seeing them without having to have Visio on the desktop. And if you want to get even cleverer, you can actually click on a timeline, or you can click on any type of shape, and then see that information being updated in a box over there on the right-hand side, so you can see any key metadata which is being stored, and all of that will be updated automatically from the database. So with that, that's pretty much the end of the presentation. And just to say thank you very much indeed for your time. And naturally, if you've got any queries or questions, you've got my details there onto the page. So it was a little short on the Premier timeline side, but hopefully the presentation's been made up for it by the useful features you've got within Visio. But Andrew, any queries or questions at this time?
No.
No. Okay. Well, I'm pretty much done. Andrew, anything extra you want me to add?
No. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for your time watching this, and have a good morning, good afternoon, or good evening wherever you are. Thank you.